A single dad, a bomb wired to respond to sound, and a soldier who said, "Disarm it by ear, or marry me out of spite." Sounds absurd, it was, until what he did next left the entire military base speechless. This isn't just a story about defusing a bomb, it's about defying judgment, healing through courage, and proving that even the most broken hearts still carry rhythm. The bomb didn't beep like in the movies. It pulsed slow, almost rhythmic, like a heartbeat echoing through the steel bones of Redstone Base's command center. The hum in the air was electrical charged and unforgiving. Screens flickered, officers stood frozen, and above it all the red digits of the countdown glowed like eyes watching them fail. 58. 29:57. "This has to be a drill," someone whispered. It wasn't. Lieutenant Colonel Scarlet Ray didn't blink. She stood at the head of the control room, her eyes locked on the schematics scrolling across the main display. Her black combat uniform bore no rank insignia. She didn't need one. Everyone already knew who she was, the youngest EOD commander in base history, the best technical strategist in the Western Division, and the woman who had once disarmed an IED underwater with nothing but a wrench and a diver's knife. But this was different. This device wasn't part of the simulation, said Major Delaney, sweat pooling at his temple. It's a real payload, nuclear capable. It just went live. Scarlett's jaw flexed. How, we don't know. What do we know? Delaney swallowed. The signal to shut it down isn't responding. It's rejecting our command codes, all of them. We tried to isolate it, cut power from the mainframe. It has an internal backup. She stepped forward, her voice sharp and cold as steel. "So you're telling me there's a live warhead in my base, and not a single person here can stop it?" Silence. 29:14. 29:13. Scarlett glanced around the room. 37 personnel, 10 different branches, over 100 years of combined experience in high-risk ordnance, and not one of them had a solution. She exhaled slowly through her nose, then muttered under her breath, "Amateurs." "Ma'am," a junior tech called nervously. There's something else. The device is broadcasting audio frequencies sublayered irregular, possibly a dynamic cipher. We think it's musical." Scarlett turned. "You're telling me someone encoded this thing in music?" "More like sound architecture, ma'am. 5-layered harmonics. We tried filtering it through spectral analyzers, but nothing translates. It's gibberish." A laugh broke the tension. It came from behind them, soft, low, and definitely not authorized. Everyone turned. At the far end of the room stood a man in a navy blue janitor's uniform, leaning on a mop handle like it was a staff of command. He looked completely out of place in the storm of uniforms and blinking lights. His name tag read, E. Mercer. Scarlett narrowed her eyes. "Do you think something's funny?" The man shook his head, amused. "No, ma'am. Just ironic." She took a step toward him. "Explain yourself." He gestured toward the monitors. "You're trying to decipher a dynamic acoustic lock using AI processors and tactical filters." He smiled faintly. "It won't work. The algorithm is built to mislead machines." Scarlett folded her arms. "And you know this because—" Eli Mercer met her gaze without flinching. "Because I wrote something like it once, back when people still called me Dr. Mercer." The room stilled. Delaney blinked. "Doctor of what? Acoustic engineering. Specialized in harmonic encryption. Used to work for DoD Section 44, before I traded it in for this." He gave the mop a tap. "Better hours. Less fallout. Figurative and literal." Scarlett stared at him like he was a mirage. "You're telling me you can understand what that thing is saying? I'm telling you it's not saying anything. It's singing. And if you want to shut it down, you don't need a code. You need an ear." Another officer snorted. "What do you propose?" That we hand the warhead over to the janitor. Eli tilted his head. Well, if no one else here speaks its language. Scarlett cut him off. And what happens if you fail? Eli didn't blink. Then the mop's yours. Just don't forget to rinse the bucket. For a moment it was almost funny. Almost. But then the red numbers ticked louder in her mind. 27 Vrisro. She looked at him. Really looked. And saw not a janitor, but a man who wasn't scared of explosions, only of being ignored. Scarlett raised her voice so the whole room could hear. "All right," she said. "If you really think you can shut it down, disarm that bomb by ear, then just to keep the absurdity in the air, and if you succeed, I'll marry you out of pure spite." The room gasped. Laughter broke out, half nervous, half stunned. Eli just smiled. "Well, that's a higher stakes incentive than hazard pay." She waved him forward. "Go on then, maestro. The floor's yours." The moment Eli stepped toward the bomb, the entire command center seemed to inhale. Not a soul moved. No one dared. Even the countdown felt quieter. 26, 26:42. He moved with a calm that didn't match the chaos, like a man walking into a room he'd cleaned 100 times before. In truth, he had. Redstone's control center was on his route every third night. He knew the feel of the floors, the hum of the walls. But he'd never expected to stand here like this at the center, not the fringe. Scarlett trailed him with her eyes, arms crossed, expression unreadable. He stopped 3 feet from the device. It sat like an uninvited god in the middle of the diagnostics table. Matte black casing, no serial numbers, no instructions, just a blinking red light and a faint pulsing sound that seemed to come from the bones of the air itself. Eli tilted his head, slightly closed his eyes. There it was, a 5-tone cycle, each note layered in dissonance, designed to mask itself in any environment. To most people it would sound like feedback, white noise, maybe a computer glitch. But to him it was a language, one he hadn't spoken in years. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a folded notepad and a short pencil, the kind he used to track supply inventory. He wrote quickly. 5 frequencies, 3 harmonic anchors, 2 decoy pulses. His jaw clenched. "It's worse than I thought." Scarlett's voice snapped from behind. "Start talking." Eli turned slightly. "This isn't just a fail-safe encryption, it's reactive. Whoever built this didn't want it disarmed. They wanted it to punish anyone who tried. So it's booby-trapped in a way. The acoustic layers are designed to adapt if you approach them algorithmically. Every failed attempt reroutes the logic tree, like a melody that gets angrier every time you miss a note." She blinked. "It's evolving." "Only if you don't listen properly." Scarlett narrowed her eyes. "You're not making this any easier to believe, janitor." Eli gave her a thin smile. "Would it help if I called it a tactical resonance interface instead of a singing bomb?" She didn't smile. He turned back to the device, then softly began humming. Low, steady, 1 note at a time. Somewhere behind him a soldier whispered, "Is he seriously trying to disarm a bomb by?" Singing to it, Scarlett silenced them with a look. But deep inside, even she felt the ridiculousness clawing at her logic. If this failed, and it would statistically speaking, she'd just let a janitor touch classified ordnance under a joke of a proposal. She'd be lucky if all she lost was her clearance. But Eli's tone shifted. He tapped the casing once with his knuckle, then again, then paused, like tuning a string. His humming modulated. The pulsing of the device changed. Delaney's eyes widened. Did that just slow down? "It's sinking," Eli said, still focused, like a metronome adjusting to a conductor. Scarlett leaned forward slightly. "How do you know what note comes next?" He scribbled something fast, because whoever built this left a fingerprint, a signature cadence in the fifth harmonic. It's subtle, but it's personal. You've heard it before, no, Eli said. But I've written it before. This structure, it's old tech, maybe 15 years. Designed for auditory encryption in deep field ops. They shelved the program when they realized it was too human-dependent. And you worked on that. I was that. Silence wrapped around the room. 24 Guadok. 24 saw one. He whistled once, just 3 soft notes, and the device responded again. A soft mechanical shift. Not a click. Not a beep. Just a shift. Like a door halfway unlocked. Scarlett stepped closer. I've trained with NATO's top EOD teams. Nothing in my manuals even remotely covers this. That's because you were taught to see problems, Eli murmured. Not hear them. Scarlett flinched at the unintended metaphor. She thought of her father, also EOD, lost in a similar room, on a similar mission. No sound. No warning. Just gone. She looked at Eli now, crouched beside the device, hand steady, breathing even. He wasn't nervous. He was listening. And somewhere in the background, she felt something crack quietly in her armor. He was different and terrifyingly competent. Eli adjusted a dial, recalibrated the frequency receiver. The pulse is slowing. But it's tricking us. At 18 minutes, it will launch a secondary protocol, one designed to mimic shutdown. If we fall for it, we're dead. Scarlett crossed her arms. How do you know that? Because that's how we designed the decoy modes. That was my contribution, make it convincing even to experts. She blinked. You helped build this. Eli looked up. Not this unit, but the prototype it's based on. It was meant for high-secrecy encryption, not ordnance. Someone weaponized it. Scarlett's stomach turned. Someone who knew you'd be here. Eli's eyes darkened. Or someone who didn't care who they killed, just wanted the message to sing. Scarlett Ray wasn't used to feeling unsure. In combat simulations, she was legendary. In command briefings, she was razor-sharp. And in real-world ops, she hadn't blinked not even once while defusing an explosive under sniper fire in Kandahar. But standing there in Redstone's control center, watching a janitor kneel before a ticking bomb like a monk before an altar, she felt something she didn't recognize. Unsteady. Not because he might fail, but because somehow she was starting to believe he wouldn't. 2307. 2306. The red numbers glared from the screen, but no one was watching them anymore. Every eye was on Eli Mercer, who was no longer just a janitor, no longer just a curiosity. He was a variable, a wild card, and Scarlett hated variables. She moved closer, crouching next to him. The faint buzz of the bomb's internal harmonics hummed through the air like the tail end of a symphony played underwater. Tell me what you're doing, she said quietly. Eli didn't look up. I'm mapping the fifth harmonic's collapse sequence. When it drops, I'll have 6 seconds to isolate the primary resonance lock before it triggers a phantom shutdown. She frowned. English, please. He gave a half smile. If I get it wrong, the bomb pretends it's off, then explodes. Scarlett exhaled. And what are the odds of you getting it wrong? Used to be 10%. Now maybe 2. That's not good enough. Eli turned to her slowly. Scarlett, may I call you Scarlett? She blinked. No. Fair enough, Colonel. He said with the kind of soft amusement that irked her more than outright arrogance. You brought me into this room after a joke about marriage. You let me touch a live bomb based on nothing but your gut. So ask yourself, do you want numbers or do you want a miracle? Scarlett met his eyes, and for the first time she saw no bravado, just calm. Earned calm. The kind that only came from walking through hell and coming back. Singed, but standing. You're serious, always, he said. Especially about jokes. She didn't want to smile, but something twitched in her cheek. I don't like being made a fool of, she warned. Eli turned back to the bomb. Then you'd better hope I know what I'm doing. Scarlett stood and paced away, trying to calm the storm of thoughts ricocheting in her head. Who the hell was this man, really? A janitor with doctoral-level knowledge of encrypted resonance weaponry. It didn't add up. No background checks had flagged him. No prior military activity logged in Redstone's onboarding database. She pulled out her tablet and keyed into a secure network. While Eli worked, she did her own kind of disarming digging into the enigma that was Eli Mercer. What she found made her throat tighten. Dr. Elias Mercer, former lead researcher at the Department of Defense's Acoustic Encryption Division, honor graduate from MIT, tenured professor in auditory signal processing at UT Austin, resigned suddenly in 2016 after the death of his wife, Maya Chavez Mercer. Field tech specialist, killed in an accidental detonation during a mission in Yemen. He disappeared from the system the following year. Until now. Scarlett stared at the glowing tablet, then at the man who now crouched before the bomb with nothing but a pencil, a notepad, and his ears. No protective gear. No assistance. Just focus. Eli paused suddenly. His hand hovered above the device, motionless. "Don't speak," he said. Voice low. Scarlett froze. Everyone froze. He pressed 2 fingers against the casing, slowly, rhythmically, like testing a heartbeat. A faint shift echoed in the air. Eli's eyes closed. Scarlett's did not. She watched as something passed over his face, not fear, not tension. Memory. His lips moved, but no sound emerged. Then just above a whisper, "Maya." Scarlett stiffened. The room stayed silent. Eli exhaled deeply. "Got it." "What?" He opened his eyes. They copied her pattern. The same signature sequence Maya and I built for our prototype. This one. It's twisted, but it's hers. Scarlett's voice dropped. "Are you saying someone used your wife's design against you?" Eli's jaw worked, then set. "No, I'm saying someone finished what we started and corrupted it." 2019. 2018. He tapped one more note into his pad, then stood. "It's stable for now. I've delayed the primary sequence. We've bought time. Maybe 15 minutes. Scarlett blinked. "So it's not over." "Not even close." Delaney stepped forward. "We should evacuate the building." Eli shook his head. "If we move the bomb, we risk disrupting the sound environment. Everything it's doing depends on resonance inside this room. Take it out of here, and it could start rewriting its own code." Scarlett sighed. "Then we stay." Eli nodded. She stepped closer to him this time without hostility. "What happens next?" Eli glanced at her, then toward the ceiling as if listening for something only he could hear. Now he said, "We figure out who built this." Scarlett raised an eyebrow. "You're going to track a bomb designer by listening." He met her eyes. "No, I'm going to listen to the ghost in the music." 1932. 1931. The countdown ticked, steady as a heartbeat, but inside Eli Mercer's mind, the world wasn't ticking, it was ringing. A sharp, almost imperceptible tremor in the air vibrated through his chest, like a whisper only grief could translate. The bomb still sang not loudly, not dangerously, but constantly, like an old phonograph repeating a ghost's lullaby. He crouched again, fingers hovering over the casing. The melody had shifted slightly. A modulation in the third harmonic. Most wouldn't have noticed. But Eli had lived a lifetime in frequencies. He'd fallen in love through harmonics. He'd buried his wife in silence. Now that silence was playing her song. Scarlett hovered behind him, arms still crossed, but the sharpness had softened. She didn't speak, maybe afraid to interrupt the fragile connection he was building. Or maybe she simply didn't want to admit she was beginning to trust him. Eli tapped the side of the device. A soft thump echoed back. Then again. 2 short, 1 long. He listened for the reply. It came. Scarlett blinked. It's communicating. He nodded. In code, but not binary. This is something else. It's her system, Maya's. I'd recognize that rhythm anywhere. We built it together. He looked up, eyes darker now, heavy with years that had passed too fast, and losses that never did. Scarlett crouched next to him, curious now. You said she died in Yemen. A misfire. Not misfire, Eli whispered. Misread. Scarlett frowned, meaning there was a pattern in the device she was disarming. Same architecture, same type of trap, same acoustic signature. I decoded it the night before. The mission left a warning with her commanding officer. He paused. His voice, when it returned, was scraped, raw. They didn't believe a pattern was enough. Too abstract, too experimental. So they sent her in blind. A beat. Scarlett lowered her eyes. They didn't pull her. He shook his head. Protocol said. No, evidence was too theoretical. She walked in, and 20 seconds later. He didn't finish. Didn't need to. Scarlett's voice was softer than it had ever been. And that's why you left, Mita. I left because I stopped trusting myself. The sound of that detonation, it never left me, like I should have heard it sooner. They sat in silence for a long moment, not because there was nothing to say, but because sometimes silence carries more weight than any speech ever could. Eli finally stood and took a breath. I need access to the archive database. Scarlett frowned. Why? Because whoever built this bomb used Maya's harmonic framework, which means someone had access to our original encryption files, and there's only one place those were stored. Scarlett hesitated, then keyed into her tablet. You'll need clearance. Eli raised an eyebrow. You're giving it to me. I'm loaning it to you, she corrected. I'm not stupid, but if this really is what you say it is, if someone inside DoD built this, then we need to know who and why. As she entered her override codes, Eli noticed the slight tremor in her hand. Not fear. Not incompetence. Something else. He tilted his head. You lost someone too, didn't you? Scarlett didn't answer right away. Then she said, My father. He was EOD. He waited, blew a pod in a barn in Kandahar trying to save 2 Marines who'd gone in before him. The detonator was old school, basic, but it had a backup hidden in the floor. He missed it. She paused. At least that's what the report said. You didn't believe it. She turned her face slightly away. No, he didn't make mistakes. Eli nodded, understanding something without needing her to explain further. She handed him the tablet. You've got 10 minutes in the archive node. Use it well. He gave her a small nod. Always do. Eli stepped into the adjacent secure room, the glass door sealing behind him. Scarlett watched as he sat before the terminal, fingers moving fast. Lines of code, old schematics, and classified memos scrolled by in bursts. He pulled up the audio architecture logs from 2014, cross-referenced them with a set of encrypted blueprints, labeled Project Harp Seal. Scarlett's eyes widened. She knew that code name. It had been buried during a Senate intelligence hearing years ago, deemed too unpredictable, too dependent on non-deterministic variables. Translation, it relied too much on human instinct. Her headset crackled. Colonel, came Delaney's voice. You should see this. She turned on her earpiece. What is it? The bomb just issued a new sequence. Different frequency. High bandwave. We're detecting what looks like a location ping. Scarlett stiffened. We're right here, he replied. It's locking on to something in this building. She turned slowly to the archive room. Inside, Eli's screen flashed red. On it, a flashing marker. Target acquired. Signal confirmed, harmonic imprint. Matched Elias Mercer. Scarlett's heart dropped. This wasn't random. This wasn't experimental. This bomb wasn't just built with his wife's design. It was built for him. 1801. 18 Zerborum. The red digits blinked without mercy. Inside the archive room, Eli stared at the terminal in disbelief. The words, harmonic imprint, matched Elias Mercer, pulsed like a threat, like a death sentence wrapped in data. His reflection in the screen stared back at him, older, weathered, hollow-eyed. The man he'd tried to bury beneath late-night mopping shifts and quiet parenting had just been found. Scarlett stood outside the glass wall, arms tense at her sides, watching through the sterile blue light. He pushed the headset aside and stepped out. Scarlett didn't wait. "What the hell is this?" Eli's voice was low. It locked onto me. "No kidding," she snapped. "Explain why." He hesitated, then handed her the tablet. "That schematic. It wasn't just a match to Maya's framework. It was a match to my signature. The way I layer tones. There are over 9,000 possible patterns in that system. Only one has my harmonic sequence." "You're saying someone replicated you?" "No," Eli said. "I'm saying someone used me." Scarlett processed that. Slowly. The implication curled around the edges of her military-trained logic and turned it cold. "You think this is personal?" "I know it is." She stared at him. "You're not on any threat lists. You're not a whistleblower. What kind of enemy would build a bomb with your name in its bones?" Eli glanced down the hall toward the humming control room. "The kind that wants me to finish what I never meant to start." Back in the command center, the atmosphere had shifted. The team was nervous now, not just about the bomb, but about him. They whispered when he passed. A janitor who had once designed weapons with his ears, and now walked among them like a ghost with blood on his hands. Scarlett followed Eli to the workstation beside the device. She could feel the air change the closer they got. The bomb was humming again, louder now, more chaotic, like it sensed it was being understood, and didn't like it. 1714, 1713. Delaney stepped forward. "We're reading an internal shift in its pulse frequency. It's adapting again." Eli crouched beside the casing and placed 2 fingers gently on the surface. "It's switching tones, forcing a dissonance curve. It's trying to push me out." Scarlett leaned in. "Can you still hear the harmonic path, Billy?" he said. "But it's buried under a wall of interference." He closed his eyes, searching for it, listening not just with his ears, but with something deeper. A memory, a gut instinct, the echo of late nights with Maya humming equations beside him. Then he opened his eyes. There are only 2 wires that matter now. Delaney blinked. "What the others are dummies. Noise, distractions. These 2 he pointed, they're carrying the feedback loop that triggers the chain reaction. Cut the wrong one, and it won't detonate immediately. It'll pause, like it's mocking you. Then it'll go." Scarlett's heart kicked up. "Which one do we cut?" Eli didn't answer right away. He was staring at the wires, one blue, one green. Identical gauges, no markings. And yet, "One of them sings," he whispered. "The other one screams." Scarlett raised an eyebrow. "That's not in any bomb manual I've read." "It wouldn't be," he replied. "This isn't about schematics. It's about memory." She knelt beside him. "You can't guess. Not with lives on the line. I'm not guessing." His voice was steady. "I'm remembering. When Maya and I tested this design, we used a tonal reference point. Blue for high, green for bass. The harmonic curve always resonated lower." Scarlett's breath hitched. "So it's the green wire." Eli's fingers hovered above it. 16. 16 unindo. The countdown hit a new phase. A deeper hum rumbled through the walls. Lights flickered. The temperature dropped 2 degrees in seconds. Scarlett's headset buzzed. Colonel Delaney's voice came through strained. "There's a secondary alert. If we don't neutralize the primary node in the next 90 seconds, we lose satellite redundancy. That means if this goes off, it takes our comm grid with it." Scarlett locked eyes with Eli. "Do it," she said. "Whatever it is, do it now." He inhaled. then paused. Then he reached into his tool belt and pulled out a small, sharpened tuning fork, tapped it once against the floor. The room vibrated slightly. The green wire shimmered barely but enough. He snipped it. The humming stopped. No explosion. Just silence. Pure, absolute silence. Then the screen blinked once white text on black primary detonation path disengaged. Secondary authorization required. Scarlett exhaled. That's not a shutdown. No. Eli said, standing. That's a dare. They both looked at the screen. And in that moment, with adrenaline still thick in her blood, and the ghosts of her father and his wife lingering unspoken in the air, Scarlett blurted, "You just saved everyone in this room." Eli gave her a half smile. "You owe me a wedding, then." "A beat." Then deadpan Scarlett replied, "I said I'd marry you out of spite. I didn't say it would be a long marriage." Behind them someone snorted. Laughter rippled across the room, tired, stunned, and grateful. For now, the world hadn't ended. Scarlett met his eyes again. This time she didn't look away, and somewhere in that moment between death averted and debts, half-joked, something quieter passed between them. Something that sounded like trust. The first time Scarlett Ray saw Andy Mercer, he was barefoot, crouched on the carpet with a disassembled clock and a handful of toy dinosaurs. He looked up with a startled expression, then grinned, not shy, not cautious, just curious. His hands moved quickly in the air, forming shapes she didn't understand. "Don't worry," Eli said behind her. "He's not casting a spell. He's asking your name." Scarlett blinked. "He's signing." Eli nodded, setting his keys on the counter. "He's fluent. I'm still playing catch-up." Scarlett looked at the boy again, 7, maybe 8, with the same focused brow as his father, and eyes that didn't dart around like most kids his age. They held still. They listened, even when nothing was said. She crouched slowly. "Hi," she said softly. "I'm Scarlett." Andy tilted his head. Then he reached out and gently pressed 2 fingers to the top of her hand, then to his own chest. "She's kind," Eli translated. That's what he said. Scarlett's throat tightened. He figured that out already. Eli smiled. "He reads people better than most adults. Doesn't get distracted by what they say." She glanced at the boy again. "He's really something." "He's everything," Eli said, simply. Scarlett had never been inside a home like this, small, unpretentious, but quietly alive. The living room was lined with books, worn but cared for. A whiteboard leaned against the wall, filled with musical notations and sign language symbols. On the coffee table sat a cracked leather journal and a set of second-hand watercolor pencils. Andy returned to his clock project, glancing up occasionally but giving them space. Scarlett sat on the couch, watching him gently press his fingers to the ticking motor inside the clock. "What's he doing?" Feeling the vibration, Eli replied. "He's teaching himself how to track rhythm through pressure. We tried cochlear implants, but he prefers this. Says sound is softer when it comes through his hands." Scarlett looked at Eli. "That's poetic." He shrugged. "It's also his superpower." There was a moment of quiet, not the kind that makes people fidget, but the kind that settles between 2 people who are no longer performing for one another. "You were right," Scarlett said. "The bomb wasn't built to kill, not just that. It was personal. Surgical." Eli nodded. "Someone tailored it. Not just the tech. The sequence. It wasn't meant to cause mass destruction, it was meant to call me out." Scarlett folded her arms. "Do you think it's someone from Project Harp Seal?" "Maybe," he said. "But whoever it is, they didn't just study my work. They studied me. My cadence. My blind spots. They knew exactly how to draw me out of hiding." Andy looked up from the floor and made a short sign, tapping his wrist. "He's asking if it's time," Eli explained. "Time for what?" "To show you something." Scarlett tilted her head as Andy jumped to his feet and ran to the hallway. Moments later, he returned with a small keyboard and placed it carefully on the floor. Then he sat cross-legged in front of it, closed his eyes, and rested both hands lightly on the keys. What followed wasn't music, not in the traditional sense. He didn't press the keys to make sound, he pressed them to feel the vibration. He touched each note like a question, held it in silence, then moved to the next, forming a slow progression of motion that was half music, half meditation. Scarlett didn't understand what she was seeing until Eli whispered, "He's playing the harmonic scale from the bomb's encryption." Her breath caught. "How does he? He watched me rehearse it from memory last night. Didn't say anything. Just sat on the floor and listened with his palms." Scarlett looked at Andy, now lost in the shape of the notes. "You didn't teach him, no. He taught himself." They sat in stunned silence as the boy moved through the pattern, finishing with a soft press to middle C, and a smile so small it might have been mistaken for breath. "He's not just smart," Scarlett said finally. "He's gifted." "He's my why," Eli replied. She turned toward him, surprised by the raw honesty in his voice, but Eli didn't look away. "I used to think sound was my identity," he continued. "My expertise, my research, my legacy. But Andy, he showed me that listening isn't about control. It's about presence." Scarlett felt something shift inside her, not dramatic, not sudden, but real. It was the kind of shift that happened when armor cracked just enough for warmth to get through. "You know," she said quietly, "when you first walked into that control room, I thought I had you figured out. And now," she looked at him, "now I think you might be the only person in that building who wasn't pretending to be someone else." A pause. Then Andy stood and walked over, tugging at her sleeve. He held up a small drawing, her Eli and himself standing beneath a tree. Above them, written in shaky but deliberate handwriting, "Silent people sometimes hear the most." Scarlett stared at the paper. Then slowly she knelt beside Andy and wrapped her arms gently around him. She didn't speak, but he smiled anyway. He didn't need words to know what she meant. Scarlett Ray didn't realize how tightly she wore her armor until the moment she sat in Eli Mercer's kitchen and no longer needed it. The room was small, barely enough space for the modest table, the cracked tile floor, and a pot of lentil soup simmering on the stove. But it was warm, lived in, the kind of place that held memory not in photographs, but in silence, the kind of place that felt real. Scarlett sipped the tea. Eli handed her chamomile, not her usual, but tonight usual didn't seem to apply. Andy was already asleep, curled under a blanket on the couch, one hand resting on the sketchbook that now held his drawing of the quiet team. Scarlett had tucked it into her jacket pocket, unsure why. She didn't usually keep mementos, but something about that piece of paper had followed her, like a truth she couldn't quite name. Eli leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching her with a gaze that was present, but not probing. "You're not used to this," he said. Scarlett raised an eyebrow. "Tea?" He smiled. "No." Stillness. She set her cup down, not meeting his eyes. "That obvious. It's not a flaw," he said. "Just muscle memory. People who survive under pressure tend to forget how to relax." She exhaled. "That's one way to put it." He didn't ask. He didn't press. But something about his presence made her want to say more. She surprised herself when she did. "My mother left when I was 8, she began slowly. Said she needed to find herself. My father never talked about it. He just poured everything he had into raising me. And when I turned 16, I told him I wanted to join the military." Eli nodded once. "What did he say?" "He handed me his old field manual and said, 'Read it 3 times. If you still want it, I'll sign the waiver.'" "Did you?" She smiled faintly. "I read it 5. They were quiet for a moment. Scarlett traced the rim of her teacup, then said, "When he died, I told myself I wouldn't make the same mistake he did. What mistake was that? Caring too much. Eli's brow furrowed. That's not a flaw either. It is when it gets you killed, she said flatly. He hesitated in that barn, tried to save a guy who ignored orders, paid for it with his life. Eli stepped forward. And you think shutting down your emotions is honoring him? Scarlett met his gaze, jaw tight. It keeps me alive. No, Eli said gently. It keeps you closed. Her eyes flashed. You think you know me after 48 hours and one defused bomb. No, he said calmly. But I have seen what silence looks like when it turns into armor. I wore mine for 5 years. And the problem with armor, Scarlett, is that it doesn't just keep pain out. It keeps everything else out too. She stared at him. Then in a voice smaller than she intended, it's the only thing I trust. Eli didn't argue. Instead, he walked over to a drawer, pulled out a folded sheet of paper, and handed it to her. She unfolded it. A musical scale. Handwritten. Annotated. My wife's original harmonic progression, he explained. The one we used to build the encryption framework. It's not classified anymore, it's just a memory. Scarlett studied it, then looked up. Why are you giving me this? Because you're the first person who's listened since she died. Scarlett blinked. Not heard, he clarified. Listened. There's a difference. Something cracked in her chest. Not loudly. Just enough. I don't know how to be soft, she said quietly. Not anymore. You don't have to be, Eli said. You just have to be honest. Her voice trembled. That's harder. I know. And he did. They stood in silence, facing each other across a scarred linoleum floor, neither one needing to fill the space between them with anything more than breath. Then softly Scarlett said, You're not what I expected. Eli gave her a crooked smile. That makes 2 of us. She exhaled a laugh, genuine and unguarded. It startled her. She hadn't heard herself laugh like that in years. You know, she said. Voice warming, you still owe me a wedding. Eli chuckled. You still clinging to that bet I said I'd marry you out of spite, she reminded him. He nodded thoughtfully. Well, spite ages poorly. Maybe so, she said. Then added almost shyly. But honesty might age better. Eli looked at her, really looked, and for once she didn't look away. The next morning the knock on Eli's front door wasn't polite. It was military. 3 hard raps. No hesitation. No warmth. Scarlett was already awake, standing in the kitchen barefoot, her hair tied back, clutching a coffee mug, as if it might shield her from whatever was coming. Eli opened the door to find 2 uniformed officers flanking a man in a charcoal suit, with a Department of Defense badge clipped to his chest. His hair was perfect. His smile wasn't. Mr. Mercer, the man said smoothly. Or should I say, Dr. Mercer. I'm Agent Howard, Brain, Office of Internal Investigations. We need a word. Scarlett moved into the doorway behind Eli. Brain nodded in her direction, his smile tightening. Colonel Ray. Didn't expect you to be. Off base. Scarlett crossed her arms. You're early. I figured you'd appreciate urgency, Brain replied. Given the little incident with the bomb, which, by the way, we'd like a full account of. Eli stepped forward. I've already filed my report. Brain's smile vanished. Not with us. Scarlett's jaw tightened. What's this really about? Brain didn't blink. The device was coded using technology classified under Project Hopseal. That makes it government property. The moment Mr. Mercer began manipulating it, he crossed into a jurisdiction that he's no longer cleared for. That bomb was seconds away from triggering a failsafe, Scarlett snapped. He's the reason we're standing here, and not buried under 50 feet of scorched concrete. Heroism doesn't nullify protocol, Brain said coolly. Eli stepped forward. If you want to charge me, do it. Otherwise, stop posturing. Brain studied him. Then, instead of answering, he pulled a folded sheet of paper from his breast pocket and handed it over. Eli opened it. Scarlett read it over his shoulder. It wasn't a charge. It was a summons requesting Eli's immediate appearance at Redstone Base for an emergency debrief. No legal representation, no delay. Scarlett narrowed her eyes. This isn't a debrief. It's an ambush. Brain gave a small shrug. Call it what you want. Then he added, like it was an afterthought. You should know. There's chatter on the line. Some folks think Mercer didn't just help fix the problem. They think he was the problem. Scarlett's voice dropped to ice. That's not just offensive, it's idiotic. Brain gave a half smile. Noted. Inside the Humvee, the silence between Eli and Scarlett was a new kind of tension. Not from mistrust, but from the awareness that something larger had been set in motion. Something neither of them could fully stop. You don't have to come, Eli said softly. Scarlett didn't answer. You could say this crossed the line. That you're done protecting a janitor who got in too deep. Still no answer. He turned to her. She was staring out the window, jaw set. I told you I'd marry you out of spite, she said quietly. But if they try to use you as a scapegoat, if they turn this into a joke, I'll burn the entire chain of command down to the bolts. Eli blinked. That's unexpectedly romantic. She cracked a smile. Don't get used to it. Redstone Base's command hall looked different under fluorescent interrogation lights. The long table was flanked by 4 high-ranking officers, and Brain at the head. Scarlett and Eli stood before them like chess pieces in a game that had already been rigged. General Lansing spoke first, a veteran with silver eyebrows and a voice like gravel. Dr. Mercer, do you know why you're here? Yes, Eli said. Because I disarmed a bomb designed using stolen technology, and you're not sure whether to thank me or erase me. No one smiled. Lansing tapped the table. The harmonic encryption in the device matches your original research. Can you explain that? Eli nodded. It was embedded in the open-source side files before the project was locked down. If someone copied that framework and restructured it, they could make it trace back to me. Could someone else have built it? Yes, but not easily. Eli hesitated. No, not easily. Brain leaned in. Then maybe you built it yourself, to get attention, to get revenge for your wife's death. Maybe you needed the world to remember your name. Scarlett stepped forward. That's enough. Brain smirked. Colonel, you're out of line. She didn't move. Then bring me up on charges. I'll go down swinging. A long silence. Then Eli spoke again. There's a reason I didn't defend myself right away, he said, his voice calm. Because deep down, I was afraid it could have been me. Not literally. But the old me, the one who lost sight of consequences. The one who thought encryption was a game. The one who believed a sound could control the world if only I tuned it just right. He looked each officer in the eye. But that man died the day my wife did. And I'm not here to resurrect him. I'm here to make sure the same silence doesn't bury someone else. The room stilled. No one spoke for a long time. Then Lansing leaned back. We'll continue this inquiry internally. But for now, you're released. Brain stood slowly. This isn't over. Scarlett stepped in front of Eli. No, it's just beginning. Outside the hall, the sun was beginning to set its light, stretching long across the pavement. Eli walked beside her, silent. Then that wedding bet, Scarlett raised an eyebrow. What about it? He glanced at her, half a smile forming. If I make it out of this without being court-martialed, I'm cashing it in. She gave him a long, amused look. You sure you want to marry a woman who threatens federal agents and drinks cold coffee? He stepped closer. If it's out of spite, yes. But if it's out of something else? She stopped walking. So did he. And for one long second, the weight of the world paused long enough for her to whisper, "Then you better give me something worth believing in. The file was never meant to be opened again." Buried in a hard drive Eli Mercer had sworn never to reconnect, it sat like a ghost in a digital vault, untouched, encrypted, and quietly pulsing beneath layers of password walls. But now, with the chain of events pulling him further into the vortex of his past, there was no more pretending. He opened the file. It was called mayalast.wav. Scarlett watched from the doorway. She said nothing. She didn't need to. The look in Eli's eyes told her this wasn't just a file, it was a confession. He put on the headphones, but didn't press play. "Not yet. This was the last session we ever recorded together," he said. 2 days before the crash. Scarlett stepped closer, slower. "You kept it." "I told myself it was for Andy, that one day when he grew up he could hear what his parents created together." Eli stared at the waveform on the screen. "But the truth is, I couldn't bear to hear it again. What changed you?" he said. Voice quiet, and the way you looked at me in that room, like I wasn't just a mistake waiting to be made again. Scarlett swallowed the lump in her throat. Then he clicked play. For a moment there was only static. Then a low tone, haunting, deliberate, almost mournful. Maya's voice entered like a whisper through water layered beneath the tones. A soft hum of vowels shaped like lullabies, like codes hidden in compassion. Eli closed his eyes. Every note hit like a memory. Every shift in frequency carried the weight of dreams once shared and then shattered. Scarlett watched him, his breath uneven, shoulders rigid. This wasn't a man listening to music. This was a man standing at the edge of a grave that had never been filled. Then the screen flickered. An error code flashed. Eli froze. "That's not supposed to happen," he murmured. The waveform split, reconfigured itself. A hidden channel unfolded, revealing a series of digital pulses buried in the track, like a dormant parasite. Scarlett leaned in. "What is that?" "It's a subcarrier layer," Eli whispered. "Someone embedded a signal under the track." He rewound, isolated the second channel, and filtered out Maya's vocal range. What remained was a synthetic pattern, rhythmic coded. "It's a transmission," he breathed. "It was never just a song." Scarlett's mind raced. "You think Maya knew?" Eli stared at the screen, at the spectral shape of his wife's final message. "I think someone used her voice to send something else." He ran the code through a real-time translator. Symbols emerged, then letters. A name. Brain. Scarlett's stomach dropped. "That's Snake." Eli's fingers flew across the keyboard, decoding the sequence further. Dates, coordinates, encryption stamps that matched files sealed under Project Hopseal. Data too sensitive for public release, and all of it had been funneled quietly, cleverly through a dead woman's voice. "Brain didn't just want to frame me," Eli said. "He used Maya's work. He used her." Scarlett's hands clenched. "That's treason." "No," Eli said, shaking. "It's worse. It's personal. He wasn't trying to bury me. He was trying to rewrite the last thing Maya and I built together." Silence bloomed between them, dense, electric. Then Scarlett straightened. "We're not going to the press," she said. "We're not going to the JAG office." Eli frowned. "Then what?" "We're going to the control room. Redstone's secure comms lab was closed for the night." Brawl. That didn't stop Scarlett. With one swipe of her security clearance and a well-placed threat to the corporal on duty, they were inside within minutes. Eli uploaded the filtered track. The computer read it in waves, parsing the embedded code. As it decrypted, a live feed began to trace the origin of the message. A shadow network Brain had accessed dozens of times, laundering data through discarded research, creating backdoors in projects long considered dormant. Scarlet stared at the screen. He's not just laundering secrets, he's weaponizing grief. Eli nodded. He used Maya's death to silence the only person who could expose him. A beep. The feed completed its trace. Scarlet's eyes widened. He's broadcasting again. Tonight. Eli stared at the final line of code. Location, North Range. Decommissioned testing site. Scarlet looked at him. Then that's where we go. But if he's transmitting again... Scarlet met his eyes. It means there's another bomb. Outside, the wind was picking up cool, sharp, and full of desert static. As they geared up, Scarlet handed Eli a vest. He raised an eyebrow. Is this part of the wedding package? She smirked. No. This is the part where you don't die before I decide if I actually like you. Eli chuckled. But as he strapped on the vest, his smile faded. Because this wasn't just about stopping a device anymore. It was about reclaiming a legacy, one that had been stolen, buried, and silenced. And Eli Mercer was done being silent. The North Range stretched out like a graveyard of forgotten ambition, an expanse of cracked soil, rusted scaffolding, and sun-bleached fences, half-eaten by time. The old weapons testing site had been decommissioned over a decade ago, but as Eli and Scarlet stepped out of the jeep beneath the black sky, it pulsed with a strange kind of electricity. The air was wrong, too still, too quiet, and silence in the desert was never a good sign. Eli scanned the horizon. Why hear Scarlet's boots crunched against gravel? Because ghosts don't echo out here. And Brain thinks that means no one will hear him. She led them to the remnants of a collapsed hangar, its metal ribs now curved like a broken lung. In the center sat a black case resting on a reinforced crate. The case was open. Inside, a device about the size of a lunchbox, matte black, humming faintly. Scarlet's breath caught. That's not a signal booster. Eli stepped closer carefully. His eyes tracked every seam, every port. It's the same signature as the first bomb, he said. Voice low. But this one's different. It's been tuned. Scarlet frowned. Tuned, Eli knelt. It's not just meant to explode. It's meant to sing before it does. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a small handheld interface. The screen flared to life with a frequency chart, one that was already active. Scarlet looked at it. It's already broadcasting, yeah, Eli said. But not to a satellite. It's broadcasting inward, a closed loop, like it's waiting for the right note. He tapped a few keys. A sequence emerged. Scarlet's eyes narrowed. Is that Morse? No, Eli whispered. It's music. The sequence was layered in harmonic intervals, minor sixths, augmented fifths, intervals known to trigger sympathetic resonance in certain materials. Someone had engineered this to react, not to pressure, not to a timer, but to sound. Scarlet exhaled. He built it for you. Not just for me, Eli said. He built it to prove I couldn't stop it. He stood back, stiff voice, shaking now. This isn't a weapon. It's a challenge. Before Scarlet could answer, a voice rang out behind them. Well, said Brain, stepping out from the shadows in a crisp, black tactical jacket. Looks like the janitor does read his mail. Scarlet whipped around, weapon raised. Brain didn't flinch. Relax, Colonel. I didn't come here to shoot anyone. That would be crude. And I'm many things, but never crude. Eli stepped between them. You used Maya. Brain gave a slow theatrical shrug. She was brilliant. She built a bridge between math and emotion. I simply walked across it. You twisted her work. I honored it, Brain snapped. Your wife spent her life trying to control chaos with beauty. What greater tribute than building a device that listens before it kills? Scarlet's eyes burned. You're sick. No, Brain said, smiling. I'm just tired of being invisible. While Mercer here was soaking up grants and press, I was the one cleaning up his errors. I kept Project Harpseal running when he went ghost. And still, they forgot me. He pointed to the bomb. But they won't forget this. Eli moved slowly toward the device. Scarlet whispered, "You can't touch it. He wants you to." "I know." Eli crouched beside the case again, pulled out a single earpiece, and slid it in. He whispered, "I'm not going to disarm it." Scarlet froze. What Eli's voice was, even. "I'm going to tune it back." Scarlet shook her head. "That's suicide. You're not in a soundproof chamber. If it misfires, she didn't build this to destroy," Eli said. "She built it to resonate. It's only dangerous if it's misunderstood." He closed his eyes, listened. Not to the ticking, not to the hum, but to the space between. Then, fingertips trembling, he began tapping the crate softly with a measured rhythm. Not random, not guesswork. It was Maya's scale, the same one from the encrypted file, the same one Andy had played silently with his hands. Brain's face tightened. No, that's not possible. You don't know the key." I removed it. Eli kept playing, note by note, interval by interval. The device's hum shifted, the light flickered. The tension in the air shifted from static to harmony. Scarlet stepped back, watching in awe as the machine responded, not by shutting down, but by changing tune. Its aggression melted frequency, realigning into a gentle harmonic overtone. Eli whispered. She buried a failsafe inside her own code. He pressed the final note. A long silence followed. Then, click. The machine powered down. Dead. No blast. No fire. Just peace. Brain was already backing away. Scarlet raised her weapon. "Don't bother," he spat. "I'll be gone before the report's even written. The government doesn't convict people who almost commit treason." Eli stood. "Then you'll have to answer to someone else." Brain laughed. "Who? The press?" "The Senate, you know," Eli said. He pointed skyward. There above the ridge, a blinking red drone hovered, broadcasting live. Scarlet smiled. Smile for the review board director. Brain froze, and for the first time he looked small, insignificant. Then Scarlet turned to Eli, eyes soft, voice steady. "You rewrote silence." Eli looked down at the deactivated device. "No," he said. "I finally heard it. 2 weeks later, the North Range was quiet again. This time, not because of fear, but because peace had returned. No headlines, no explosions, just the quiet hum of a world trying to move forward." Eli stood on the back porch of his modest house, the morning sun rising over the hills behind him. In his hands, a freshly polished violin, Maya's violin, not touched since her funeral. Until now. He tuned each string with the care of a man learning to breathe again. Behind him, the screen door creaked open. "You're up early," Scarlet said, stepping outside barefoot, a coffee mug in hand. Her olive jacket had been replaced with a soft grey sweater. Her hair was loose. She looked less like a soldier, more like someone who had come home. "I couldn't sleep," Eli replied. "Thought I'd wake the day instead of waiting for it." Scarlet smiled. "That's dangerously optimistic of you." He looked at her. "It's your fault." She raised an eyebrow. "How's that? You came into my life like a grenade with a moral compass." Scarlet laughed, soft, unguarded. "And you disarmed me." He turned the violin over in his hands, then asked quietly, "Do you believe people can change? Really change?" She stepped closer. "I believe people who've suffered deeply become either harder or more open. You chose the latter. That's change." He nodded, swallowing. Then he played. It wasn't perfect. Some notes trembled, others cracked. But it was honest. And somehow, That made it beautiful. Scarlett closed her eyes and listened, not like a soldier trained to assess, but like a woman finally allowing herself to feel. After a moment, a small pair of feet padded across the porch. Andy, his dragon plush tucked under one arm, his hair a soft mess of sleep. He reached for Scarlett's hand without saying a word. She looked down, then back at Eli. Eli stopped playing. Andy spoke in a whisper, as if afraid the moment might shatter. Was that Mama's song? Eli knelt down, meeting his son's eyes. It was her heart. Andy looked at the violin, then at Scarlett. Then he said something neither of them expected. "Can she stay?" Scarlett blinked. "Stay," Andy nodded. "With us, like, forever." Scarlett glanced at Eli, startled, but he didn't look away this time. He smiled, not the broken, guarded kind. A real smile, the kind that begins in the eyes and settles in the chest. "That's not really up to me," he said softly. Scarlett knelt beside Andy, brushing a bit of hair from his forehead. "You know," she whispered, "forever's a big word." Andy tilted his head. "Is it too big for soldiers?" Scarlett's breath caught. "No," she whispered. "It's exactly right for us." Eli exhaled slowly, as if letting go of something he'd carried for years. They sat there, man, woman, and child, on the edge of a new beginning. Not perfect, not simple, but earned. That evening, under golden light, and a sky dipped in soft blues and violets, they gathered in the backyard. Scarlett had traded her combat boots for bare feet. Eli had strung up lights between the trees, uneven, a little crooked, but glowing nonetheless. Friends came. So did neighbors. People who once only knew Eli as the janitor, the quiet man with the sad eyes. Now they saw him as something more, as someone who had fought without fists, loved without conditions, listened deeply enough to save lives. And beside him stood Scarlett, not the cold, sharp-edged soldier from before, but a woman reborn through honesty, loyalty, and grace. The vows were short, unscripted, spoken under string lights and the whisper of wind. "I never thought I'd trust again," Eli said, voice steady. "Until you dared me to. Until you walked into my silence and refused to leave." Scarlett's voice broke once. Just once. Then she smiled through tears. "You once asked me what I believe in. It's you, not the perfect parts, but the man who shows up anyway, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." They didn't kiss for applause. They kissed because it meant something. Because after everything, grief, shame, fire, failure, they'd found the one thing that defied all odds. Peace. Later that night, after the guests had gone, and the candles had melted low, Scarlett and Eli stood in the doorway of Andy's room. He was already asleep, curled around his dragon. His new drawing taped proudly to the wall, 3 figures holding hands beneath a sky of musical notes. Scarlett leaned into Eli's shoulder. "You know, I never asked you why you started fixing things after she died." He smiled faintly. "Because the world was broken. And I thought if I could fix just one thing, maybe I wouldn't be." She nodded, then whispered, "What about now?" Eli kissed the top of her head. "Now," he said, "I think the fixing is done. If this story touched your heart, we'd love to know. Where in the world are you watching from? Leave a comment and let's connect through the stories that bring us closer. If you enjoyed this journey and want more stories that lift the spirit and honor the quiet strength in people, subscribe and be part of this growing circle of kindness. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you for watching. Your time, your presence, your support. It means everything. We'll see you in the next story.